You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
The Extraordinary Phenomenon Investigations Council presents EPIC Voyages. Come join us as we enter and experience the great mysteries of the world with tonight's host,
John Cappello.
Hello and welcome to EPIC Voyagers Radio here on the Inception Radio Network. I am your guest host this evening, John Cappello, and I want to welcome all of you to our program and thank you for joining us. We are a unique program that discusses things about the paranormal, and our group, the Extraordinary Paranormal Investigations Council, likes to investigate things about UFO sightings and any other type of paranormal event that might come up. And if you're new to the program, we always have interesting guests come on talking about things that are metaphysical in a sense, but also things that people have experienced through their empirical actions or experiences, and so tonight we are going to have a very special guest with us, and I hope that you'll stay with us for the entire 2 hours tonight because it's going to be a very fascinating program. Before we go to our guest, though, I just want to let you know that I'm a psychic medium from the North Texas area, and I travel around the country. And you may see me in your town one of these days, and if you do, I hope that you'll come out for one of my spirit galleries or maybe get a private reading. I'm also an author. I have a book out, Open the Mind, Exercise the Soul, and I have my own radio program here on the Inception Radio Network. It's called Beyond Metaphysics, and so I'm very pleased that EPIC asked me to be a part of their family here on the Inception Radio Network. Now, what I wanted to tell you is that this program is also rebroadcast on another network, the Dark Matter Radio Network. It'll probably be on tomorrow night, I believe. And you can also download the program after it has concluded, and you can keep it in your records if you'd like to listen to it again or have someone else hear the program if they're not able to do that this evening. But it's like I say, what we want to do is we want to get to our guests as quickly as we can this evening. Our guest tonight is Mr. William Henry, and William is a well-known person that is often on Ancient Aliens, and okay. Let me see here. They're telling me to mute my chat. Okay, so I don't know how to do that, but we'll take care of it the best way we can. Okay, that should do it. But Mr. William Henry is a very well-known person. He is an author. He is a investigative mythologist. He's host of Revelations Radio, and he's a regular guest presenter on Ancient Aliens. He's also the star of Arcanum TV, and he's a guide. He's a person that is teaching others about transformations and about ancient aliens and about how they affect our lives today. And so what I want to do is I want to bring William into the program. William, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, John.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate you being here. And what we want to do is we want to kind of get started by asking you a little bit about yourself and about how you got started into this and how this became your passion. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Excuse me. Yeah, I started on my path of research in 1982. I had moved from Detroit, where I grew up, to Nashville, where I presently live. I was going to be an entertainment lawyer and try to work on Music Row here in Nashville, maybe go to Hollywood, who knows, anything like that. I love music, and I'm a musician and wanted to have a career in the music business. And so I came to this small Southern Baptist college here in Nashville. Wow. That offered this entertainment music business program. The courses were taught by music industry professionals, and so you got to know the people very well, and it would open up opportunities to work in the business. But the catch was, because it was a Baptist college, you had to take Bible study classes, and I knew nothing about the Bible. My family was not particularly religious. We went to church on Christmas and Easter. That's about it. And so I was kind of hitting it cold, had no real preconceived ideas or anything. And lo and behold, I'm in a sophomore sociology class, and the professor assigns us to review a book whose implications would impact Christianity and write a 3-page review about it. So off to the bookstore I go, and I find this brand new book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail. And I start thumbing through it, and it says the crucifixion was a hoax. Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married. They had children. They left sacred secrets in a remote hilltop village in southern France called Rennes-le-Château. And I was hooked instantly. And I don't know what it was about that book, but listeners are probably familiar with it through the likes of like Dan Brown, who wrote his book Da Vinci Code based on that book and sold 85 million plus copies of the book. There was something in that hooked me as well as a lot of other people, and it caused me to really do some serious questioning. I ended up writing a 44-page review about the book, and I was actually invited to continue my education elsewhere because the professor asked me if I actually believed any of the stuff that was in the book, and I said, as a matter of fact, I think the authors made a pretty good case for what they were saying, and that was the end of my college career at that Baptist college, but it wasn't the end of my investigation into the mysteries of Christianity, the esoteric mysteries of Christianity, and I've continued researching them for the 30 years since then.
Well, I noticed that you have some interesting things to say about angels, and that you have studied different art from like the medieval time period. And it seems that you are mainly working on areas where angels may have fallen from heaven, or how they are in that transformation, and how they are reacting to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't like to use the word fallen in relation to angels. That sounds too religious. That's too dogmatic, and people talk about fallen angels. They really don't know what that word means most of the time. So I just talk about angels, period, and I'm fascinated by why would beings that are so much more advanced than humanity willingly leave a place of perfect light and love to take on a human physical incarnation, to take on human bodies. And that's kind of the core question that I'm presently working on. I wrote a book about the Watcher angels, the angels that sit on the divine council of God and the heavenly Sion, and I'm just utterly transfixed by this story, and have tried to go beyond when a lot of people talk about the Watchers and the fallen angels. Again, they're kind of reacting, or they're repeating what they've been told by a preacher or a pastor, and they've never really done extensive research about the context in which the stories about the fallen angels, the Watchers, were written, and that's something that really started to interest me.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were talking about in your new book something about Seraphim angels, or do you acknowledge different types of angels, or
sure,
or
yeah.
What and how are angels in a way organized in your mind, and then also, I hate to just jump into angels because I know you get into ancient aliens as well, but how in your philosophy are angels organized, or do they have a hierarchy, or do they have a way of doing things? And you mentioned Sion. Can you explain to us a little bit more about Sion?
Yeah, sure. When you go into, for example, the New Testament book of Hebrews, you're going to be introduced to a place called Sion as the name of the heavenly throne of Christ. No one knows where it is. Kabbalists think it's perhaps in the center of the universe or the center of reality somewhere. The Mormons actually believe it's the center of the Milky Way galaxy, for whatever that's worth. But it's described in Hebrews as an inhabited location. It's the throne of Christ, and it's inhabited by angels gathered in joyful assembly, and also just humans made perfect. And when I started thinking about who are these people, these just humans made perfect, how did they get to be that way? How did they get to go dwell in this heavenly Jerusalem, this place called Sion, and what do I need to do in order to join them? These became really important questions in my research, and I don't pretend to have full answers to those questions, but I am in pursuit of that, and following this story of these angelic beings, the Seraphim, this highest order of angels. And just briefly, yes, they do describe an angelic hierarchy, but to me it seems like it's more based on a spiral instead of a vertical ladder. So in other words, there's just kind of different gradations. It's sort of more like a color wheel in a way of the various powers that these angels possess. But at the top of the ladder, if you want to think of it that way, or at the center of the circle, would be the Seraphim, the winged serpents, the burning ones. These are the highest order of angels, and it is they who comprise, for the most part, the order of angels that we refer to as the Watchers, or the fallen ones. These are the angels that willingly decided to cross over the boundary separating light from flesh, God or the divine from the human world, and took on human incarnation and caused, in some cases, tremendous havoc as a result of that. But in other cases, they left a tremendous gift to humanity of the actual secrets of heaven, as they're described, of how humans can transform into angels.
Wow. Well, the Seraphim is considered, like you said, from I guess other traditions or other philosophies, as the highest or the closest angel to God. They're generally looked upon as being huge, and I feel like I've seen Seraphim angels in my work because people have seraphims around them, and even some of my clients will tell me that they had a huge angel around them. That, to me, that's a buzz for the actual seraphim. But I was going to ask you other types of angels, like the cherubs. Do you work with them, or do you have any?
No.
You don't? Okay.
No, not so much. the cherub in my area of research are often interchanged with the seraphim. For example, when I've written a book about the Ark of the Covenant, and they're thought to be the angels. The cherub are thought to be the angels that guard the Ark of the Covenant. But then when you get into the research, you realize that most people think, well, it's probably incorrect to say it's the cherubim. It's more likely the seraphim that are guardians of the Ark of the Covenant. And I've just kind of zeroed in on the seraphim. And part of the reason why is I started on this. I was in the Philadelphia Museum of Art one day, and I walked up to a painting, and I saw what I described as a butterfly Jesus. And I'm looking at this painting, and I'm going, why does Jesus have butterfly wings? I mean, you never see references to Jesus being a Christ angel or referred to even as an angel. And so it prompted me to do some research, and it turned out that the painting was by one of the great masters, John Van Eyck. And the subject was was St. Francis of Assisi, who is receiving the stigmata wounds, the wounds of the crucifixion, the 5 wounds of crucifixion, from Christ as a seraph. And
well, of course, there's a lot to be said about St. Francis, but that's interesting that Christ would appear as a seraphim.
Yes, and that wasn't the first time. I was in the Nubian Museum in Aswan, Egypt, and in my books I show a 4th century depiction of Christ as a seraph, and it got me wondering if maybe that is actually the form that Christ might even take when he manifests in our 3D world.
So you are basically, like I say, the working with the seraphim. And you're saying that sometimes Christ takes the form of a seraphim.
Yes.
The seraphim, of course, like we were saying, were the most powerful angels. And the reason why I brought up the cherubs is because the cherubs are known to be the second highest in the hierarchy of angels, but they are the angels of all knowledge and wisdom. And the most famous cherub is Lucifer.
Well, Lucifer can also be interpreted as a seraph as well. Because he's a watcher.
Okay. Well, because I've only known him as a cherub, and so it just seems like you are able to mix all of them in with the seraphim. So there's, I guess in my tradition, I'm just trying to get this segmented so that I can understand it, because in the hierarchy, the higher level or higher realm of the angelic hierarchy, you have the throne angels, the cherubs, and you have the seraphim, and so concentrating on the seraphim is fine. It's very unique. But I'm just wondering how it kind of relates to the other so-called angels in this hierarchy as some of us understand it. So,
well, when you talk about Lucifer in the Essene text, in the Book of the Watchers or the text related to the Watchers, Lucifer is a shapeshifter. He's able to take on the form of the serpent, especially the winged serpent. And that is the very definition of the word seraph, the winged serpents or the burning ones. So based on that, I'm pretty comfortable in saying, yeah, well, while you might traditionally think of Lucifer as a cherub, he does manifest the characteristics of the seraphim.
Well, another thing about the seraphim is that they are known to have 6 wings.
Exactly.
And the 6-wing angel, that's another way of saying, well, that's a seraphim, not only because of their huge presence, but the fact that they do have these 6 wings, which makes them unique. And the cherub is pretty much opposite of the seraphim. It's once again, from my perspective, it's the little dots you see a lot of times when you're going to bed. You see a lot of times little colored dots. And a lot of times that they say that that's the fairies or that's the cherubs around you because they are tiny. They are tiny entities, and they're the little fairies that are or little angels that you might see in the Sistine Chapel. Sometimes they look like babies, but a very powerful angel. And so you're saying that a lot of times the cherubs and seraphim kind of morph into one another. Does that make sense?
They seem to. I mean, that's what the stories indicate, and so I'm not. That's why I say I'm not that concerned about the hierarchy so much. I mean, at that level, it's kind of like the difference between purple and indigo in a way. There is a difference, but they're very strikingly similar, and it's a kind of a matter of vibration in a way.
Well, another thing is that if they are depicting Christ as a seraph, and Christ is part of the Holy Trinity, a part of God, then wouldn't it be kind of an easy leap to say that the seraphs are kind of a part of the God energy?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Perhaps that's why they sit on God's divine council. And are often portrayed in Christian art as the guardians of the throne of Christ, or the guardians of Sion.
Yes, they're considered the guardians and the ones, of course, closest to God. But it just seems that you are basing a lot of the information from Hebrews. Is that right?
Oh, that's a starting place. No, a lot of it is, I mean, again, I was fascinated by that statement in Hebrews about the celestial Sion as this inhabited celestial location that's inhabited by angels gathered in joyful assembly, who are the watchers and the seraphim, and also these just humans made perfect, this seemingly set apart class of humans that somehow were able to gain access to this celestial location.
Well, so you're saying that humans can once they pass from this life to the next, that they can become seraphim, or seraphims come to the earth as humans. They take human form.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And now the it's interesting too that you say some seraphs or seraphims, some are, would you say, evil and some are good?
I don't do the good and evil thing necessarily, because that's all a matter of interpretation and perspective. I mean, what's good to you might not be good for somebody else. What's evil to you might not be evil to somebody else. I mean, generally, how can a being of pure light and pure love be construed as evil to begin with? And I don't see the seraphim so much being as going around making trouble for humankind. They seem to be here on a mission to awaken humanity to our godlike potential and our ability to morph into seraphim. I mean, that was one of the foundational beliefs of the Renaissance that produced so much of the art featuring the seraphim, is that humans could transform into seraphim. In fact, that is our highest human ideal, is to become like these angels.
Well, another, if you want to call it a conflict, is for metaphysics and psychics, is that a lot has been said that angels do not become human, and so you're breaking new ground from my perspective as a psychic, because so many psychics say that guides are usually people. But angels usually do not take human form. So it's interesting that you are saying that the seraphim, who is the highest of all of the angels, is morphs into. Are you familiar
with the Dead Sea Scrolls?
A little bit, not as much, I guess, as you would be, but they're still being revealed, though, I think, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They're pretty direct and pretty explicit about the angels becoming humans and coming here to teach humans to become angels. That's the foundation of what's known as Essene mysticism, the Jewish mystics who lived in about 180 BC up until the time of Jesus. Some people even think Jesus, John the Baptist, Mary were all Essenes. And their foundational belief was that humans inherently are divine. We're angelic beings that have kind of sort of lost our way. We've forgotten who we are. And they believe that their community was in communion with the angels in hopes of creating a community whereby everybody could affect the transformation from a human into an angelic light being.
So, in a way, humans are trying to perfect themselves so they can become perfect like the Seraphim.
That's correct.
Okay. So, I'm just trying to understand how this is all working. Now, I wanted to ask you. Now, I think everybody watches Ancient Aliens from time to time. When you're on Ancient Aliens, do you mainly get into this particular area as far as the Seraphims are concerned, or?
No, I've been on the show for 5 years now, and typically when we do the seasons, I'll usually do 2 to 3, sometimes 4 rounds of interviews. And each round of interview might have as many as 60 questions, sometimes more. Could be 100 questions about everything from the Sphinx to caves and the aliens, you name it, whatever the topic of the show is. So I have to go research all the questions, and very often I present story ideas myself. They've probably done, 10 or 12 different episodes based on original research that I've done.
Oh, well, because every time I've seen you on the program, I haven't heard you talk about Seraphims.
No, it's a subject I keep trying to push them into some of these more spiritual directions, and they're kind of following. It's a mainstream show. It's a History Channel show. It's aimed at angry males, and they like to break things apart and put them back together and figure things out. And so that's kind of the perspective right off the bat. And so it's not a spiritual show, although they're constantly touching on spiritual subjects. When they're talking about angels, when they're talking about angels, they might actually be talking about angels or avatars or some of the adepts of the past and thinking of them as aliens.
Well, a lot of times they seem to kind of go into maybe it's to appeal to angry males. They go into the negative about maybe demons or how things were negatively affected, and so it's just an interesting perspective that they present. But when you do talk about ancient aliens, would you say that Seraphims influenced some of the ancient cultures that were on Earth, like the Egyptians or some of the other famous ancient cultures that we look at?
Yeah, I think that if you accept that the word seraph means winged serpent, as it does, I mean, there's a couple of different definitions. Winged serpents, burning ones are typically the ones that are offered in your Bible commentaries. Then you say, well, I've seen lots of winged serpents in Sumerian art, in Egyptian art. I've seen them in Hindu art. So it raises the question, are these the same beings that are appearing in these various cultures? And so then you follow up that question by looking at, what were the winged serpents concerned with in ancient Egypt, for example? What they were concerned with was human transformation into celestial beings, star beings. Well, that sounds pretty close to me. That's like the mission of the Seraphim in the Old Testament. And you even look to people like Moses. Moses lifted the serpent of healing in the wilderness, and he actually made or identified a winged serpent, one of the burning ones. So you have Moses caught in the act of somehow interacting with the seraphim and it ultimately having a healing and transformative effect on the Israelites. So it looks to me like maybe it's possible that you could at least you could raise the question, did Moses learn about the seraphim while he was training in all the wisdom of the Egyptians? It's a good possibility.
Well, the thing about it is that studying the Mayan culture as well, Teotihuacan, are you familiar with that city?
And Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent.
And it just seems like the reptilians, as far as the some of these extraterrestrials. They don't necessarily have wings, but the one that is most famous for the Mayans and the I believe it's the Toltecs, they seem to have that image of a winged serpent or a winged reptilian as part of one of their rituals, and so I was wondering, that do you get into Mayan culture or do you get into Aztec culture?
No, but when you're describing that reptilian aspect, you're probably familiar, of course, with Moses' father, Amram, and his eyewitness account of his encounter with the archangel Michael and Melchizedek, and one of the watcher angels, one of the Seraphim, Belial. And he describes him explicitly as having a serpentine face. Mm-hmm. So from this, you get a first look at the Seraphim as in fact being winged serpents and in fact being reptilian type creatures. Mm-hmm. So that's very very interesting. It's kind of disconcerting to people to think that you've got some kind of reptilian beings running around talking to Moses' father and perhaps influencing these other cultures. But I don't feel a particularly weird sensitivity to the possibility of there being reptilian type beings out there, and that they could in fact be benevolent beings.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, no, I think that they can be benevolent beings. It's just that when you talk about the seraphs as having kind of reptilian form, it immediately brought me to the Mayans, because the Mayans had that when they merged with the other tribes in like northern Mexico, and it's interesting that you'd bring up star people, because the Mayans thought that they just said that they were star people.
They came from the Pleiades, right?
Yes, they were very good with math. They had a good idea of astronomy and just so many different things. And we talked a lot about the Mayans because of the 2012 and all
Absolutely.
of the end of the world things, and which kind of brings me to another topic, and that is the topic of Ascension, because I believe you get into that as well. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
And so. What they were saying was at the end of 2012, they were talking about December 21st, 2012, and how that was going to be the day of Ascension. And there were a lot of YouTubes out there. There were a lot of different things out there were saying that people were going to be ascended and purified. And when they did, they would be like 20 feet tall or something like that. And what they were, in a way, I guess, describing seraphims, because once again the huge figure that they become, and so it would make sense, or it follows, that what you're talking about as far as humans becoming seraphims. And so from like I say, from what we have been talking about for I guess the past couple of years, and about the Ascension, kind of falls in line with what you were talking about as far as humans morphing into the higher being. But what can you tell us about Ascension?
Well, just want to make a comment on that Maya 2012 business, because I was, like you, kind of very intrigued by it and locked onto it and tracking it for a while. The key image that I enjoyed researching and continue to research, actually, was a Mayan image of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, who could be a seraph or a seraphim, descending from the 8-rayed star, which the Mayans identified as the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And he was descending upon what the Mayans described as a serpent rope, some kind of a cosmic conduit that I interpreted, based on the work of John Major Jenkins and others, as a wormhole, and got to thinking, well, what if these seraphim actually travel the galaxy through stargates and wormholes, and what if that's part of what they're here to do, is to hook us up in a way to the cosmic highway? That's kind of segues into your question about Ascension, and that's some work I've been doing for, I don't know, probably directly since 2006, 2007, somewhere in there. It was kind of interesting. I was at a UFO conference in San Jose, big conference. A couple comes up to me and asks me. At first, they introduced themselves, and they said that they had both had PhDs from the Harvard Divinity School. They worked with the Dalai Lama. They translated Tibetan texts. Their specialty was the rainbow body of light. And they wanted to know if I knew anything about it. I said, no, I've never heard of it. And they said, well, essentially what the Tibetans teach is that the human body is designed to be spun into a vortex. It's designed to be accelerated and spun into a vortex that ultimately manifests as 5-colored rainbow light, leaving behind only hair, toe, and fingernails, which have no nerves to be transmuted. And what they said is that my work answered for them. My work in ancient Egyptian Stargate metaphysics answered for them a question that the Tibetans wouldn't answer because they said it was secret, or they simply didn't know what the answer to the question was. And that was, the Tibetans teach that once you attain this glory body or resurrection body, this rainbow body of light, then you're able to travel to an additional 12 or 13 star systems where this teaching is taught. And what they wanted to know was, how do you get there? I mean, once you pop into your rainbow body and you can go to these other star systems, how do you get there? And then they said they're watching my presentation, Star Walkers in the Dimension of the Blessed, which is about ancient Egyptian resurrection teachings, which I show in there that when the ancient Egyptian gods are ascended, when they've left their human form and then their celestial form, they can now travel on what's called the Ark of the Millions of Years, or the Ship of Eternity. And what I observed is that the way the ancient Egyptians portrayed that ark or ship matches precisely the way modern science portrays a wormhole. So I went out on a limb and said, hey, look, it looks like, it's possible that these ancient Egyptian gods, these ancient aliens, could be Stargate traveling or wormhole travelers. And so that really resonated with this couple, and they said, this is what we see happening, is that once you attain the resurrection body or glory body, your body then effectively becomes the wormhole, and you can travel through the stars as a celestial being. And so they started feeding me some various PhD dissertations and other research that kind of became the cornerstone of my work on Ascension. And what I've started to do since then is I call it playing tic-tac-toe. I link together the Tibetan, which is really an extraterrestrial teaching. It doesn't come from Earth. It's probably from, pick a star system: Sirius, Orion, Pleiades, Ursa Major, Arcturus. They're all involved. They're all, and we have beings coming and going from these star systems in sacred myth and tradition. And so I started linking the Tibetan, the ancient Egyptian resurrection mysteries with the Essene/Christian resurrection mysteries. And people really enjoy it because they get a sense that, okay, this is a true cosmic teaching here. And where it ultimately went for me is I started comparing the way that the Tibetans would show the rainbow body, these fluid vortex-shaped bodies that are rainbow-colored light. And I started comparing those with the fluid vortex-shaped bodies of the Seraphim in Christian art. And what do you know? They match.
They match.
And so that opened up this idea that what the Tibetans call the rainbow body is technically called Do Chen, or the great perfection. And so I started to use that word perfect as sort of like a needle and thread to weave my way through these traditions, just always looking for that magic word. Because they all talk about humans attaining perfection, but what does that mean? Well, in the Tibetan tradition, you're a perfect being when you have spun yourself into this vortex and you manifest your rainbow body. Well, this is exactly how Christ is portrayed in his resurrected form. The Egyptians portray Osiris in his resurrected form in a similar fashion. And it's a way of linking these traditions.
Well, I want to ask you a question. Now, is everyone on Earth going to morph into being a seraph? Because you just said that a lot of other systems, extraterrestrials come here. So is this kind of a melting pot for the universe, or an interdimensional melting pot where you have seraphims dealing with other beings, or are we all going to be seraphims?
Well, that's a very powerful question, really complex question. I don't know all the answers, but what I've observed in brief is the Tibetans, for example, teach that you're not getting off this rock until you attain your perfect body, until you attain your resurrection body, your rainbow body of light. And they tell you you're going to go round and round and round, and many people have. They also tell you, in other words, you're going to reincarnate over and over again until you do attain it. But they also tell you that you can attain it in one lifetime. Now, so that suggests that maybe we're out here way out here on the Orion arm of our galaxy. We're in no man's land in a way, but maybe we're here to bring this teaching to this part of the galaxy. I mean, I always love that image where when you look at the galaxy from face on, and you recognize that all the stars that we see in the night sky are just a tiny little dot in the Milky Way. And so there's an awful lot of life out there. And so who's to say that these beings aren't coming and going through stargates and wormholes?
But they are not all seraphims.
Well, see, now that's a question that I can't answer with any certainty, but it suggests to me, and this is just my personal belief, I'm fairly dogmatic about it. There's a hit movie out right now called Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey. I haven't seen it yet. I've read about it. I know the premise. I know Kip Thorne's work. He's a Caltech physicist who came up with the idea of the traversable wormhole in the 1980s. He worked along with Dr. Carl Sagan. I think he was a PhD. I know Kip Thorne is, and they cooked up the idea of the movie Contact, the novel Contact, and then the movie, which inspired so many people with Jodie Foster, where they build this machine and they effectively flush Jodie Foster through this plumbing system in the cosmos. That is contradicted by every single story I've ever read in the ancient world of the Seraphim coming and going, and also of ancient extraterrestrials, the ancient aliens, because they're not flying around in tin can spaceships or warp drives. Flesh and blood can't inherit the kingdom of heaven, is what we're told in the Bible. When we get beyond the boundary of our star system, in order to travel the stars, we're going to do it not in a flesh and blood form, not in a tin can form. We're going to be light beings. And so when movies like Interstellar continue to show this idea that science says that we're going to be able to build a warp drive within the next 100 years and evacuate the planet, yeah, I wish them a lot of luck, because I do believe that there is a spiritual boundary, that if they're going to ever kick in the warp drive or build wormhole drives, they're going to have to kick in the spiritual drive first.
Well, it's I guess I'm interested in the physical form that humans take. We take a human form. We're spiritual beings with a physical body. That's what that's I guess the philosophy as to why we are here. Because if we are spiritual beings or light beings, why do we need the body? Why do we come down or why do we allow ourselves to take this form if we are just going to go back to being a light being?
Well, that's where the Gnostic perspective comes in and says that this is a punishment. Being in a body is a punishment. Well, remember, where Adam and Eve are evicted from the Garden of Eden, the Old Testament God Yahweh, Jehovah, builds a gate at the east of Eden, puts cherubim on either side of him, and a flashing flaming sword in the center of the gate, says, "Don't come back." And he does something else. He makes for Adam and Eve, humanity, coats of skin. The traditional interpretation is that these are some form of animal skin. But in the esoteric Jewish tradition, the skin is human skin.
Is that where you get that the seraphims are fallen? They're fallen and they become human?
That's the definition of the word fallen. They're no longer in their ethereal light being form. They've taken on flesh and blood. That's the definition of fallen. It's the definition of evil. It's also the definition of sin, to be in a human body.
Well, because it's so all humans are basically the fallen seraphims, and
I don't know that they're all fallen seraphim.
but they're fallen beings, fallen light beings.
Yeah, and what that means to me is that we are not fallen, and to be a fallen being and to a being who lives in sin means you are not in your light body. It means you're not in your glory body.
You're not in glory. So you live this life, you pass away. I mean, your body dies, and you go back to being a light being, but you come back to be further purified. Is that right?
That's one way of viewing it. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to get a handle on a lot of the things that you're bringing up because I'm new to this. But then you come back and you also talk about the seraphs as being the watchers. So is that a different group of seraphims, or are we all watchers, or how does that work into this?
The Watchers is a name given to a specific group of angels. The term, as far as I can tell, originates with the Essenes.
Okay, they're with the it originates with the Essenes, the group that produced Mother Mary, Christ, and John the Baptist, and that group. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay. Are they part of an elite group that are supposed to be like leaders of humankind?
Well, yes. I mean, that's how we interpret them. You have to remember kind of the context of the time. The Essenes are Jewish mystics. They were operating in the Temple of Solomon, which had been newly refurbished. And then it was taken over by the Ptolemies, who were the successors of Alexander the Great, who began desecrating the temple. And so part of the Essenes left and went to Egypt, where they built a duplicate of Solomon's temple. And this is where they started writing about a superhero. They called him Enoch. The translated man. He's mentioned one time in the Old Testament as saying that he walks with God, and they took Enoch as a model of a human that could cross over the boundary between the earthly and the divine realm. And so, in addition to focusing on Enoch and this promise that humans could actually take it upon themselves to ascend to the throne of God with or without God's permission, they also started writing about the Watchers as well, as this group of fallen angels who are responsible for the flood. They were responsible for all kinds of problems for humanity. And when scholars get into that, they're confronted with a choice. You have to either interpret the Watchers as a group of angels who came from some celestial region, as some do, or you interpret them as the priesthood of the temple who desecrated the temple and were fallen ones because of it and are leading the people astray.
Well, but you also said something here that the Essenes were part of the Jews, which to common people, the Jews were considered the chosen ones or the chosen race. Are they still considered the chosen ones, or how does that relate to where we are now? Because when Christ came, of course, Christ wanted to expand the idea of the chosen to the Gentiles, which was everybody else, in addition to the Jews. So the Jews have a role as being kind of the chosen ones. Would that be a fair statement?
At that time, yeah, I would, and certainly, I know the Jewish people still believe they're the chosen ones, and I understand what you're saying about Jesus wanting to throw open the gate of heaven to everybody, and that's actually a core piece of the Essene work at that time, is that they were looking to, what they had discovered is that boundary that supposedly separated the human and the divine was in fact permeable. And so through their stories, their ascension stories about Enoch ascending to the heavenly throne, they were hoping to show that anyone could actually go through this process of ascension and become pure enough, like the Essenes, and actually transform themselves into an angelic being and enter the heavenly realms.
So so the Jewish people and the Essenes, which are like a sect of the Jewish group or Jewish people, they were already more purified than the other people. Is that right?
They believe so, yeah. I mean, they were more obsessed with purity than others, and the reason why is what they were trying to do was to transform their body into a vehicle capable of holding what we would today think of as the Christ energy. And so they segregated themselves. They were obsessed with purity. They chanted, they meditated, they ate pure food in hopes of transforming their DNA literally into a vehicle that would be capable of manifesting this Christ-like being that we know of as ultimately manifesting as Jesus. But
as Jesus, yeah. Well, so in a way, Earth and being human is kind of a purgatory. You know what I mean by that? By purgatory, it's a cleansing time, or it's a cleansing, a way for people to cleanse themselves, cleanse their souls, so that they can reach a higher realm.
Yeah, I would absolutely go along with that.
Okay, so the Earth and humanity is part of that a cleansing, because basically the taking a human form, we got to work out the kinks. This is where we're working out kinks, and this is where we learn to be good to one another or whatever. So those people that are not good, like a serial killer, they got a long way to go.
Yeah, I would say so. And the Tibetans, I mean, it's like, what good is knowing about the rainbow body, the resurrection body, the glory body? And the idea is that you're not going through this process of ascension necessarily to go to another place, but rather to transform this place, to glorify the earth, to glorify God by glorifying by glorifying the earth and raising it to a higher level of vibration itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, because it just seems that other entities may use this this forum we call Earth to work out other issues. It just, what you're doing is you're giving me a different perspective of the Jewish people, of Seraphims, and so on and so forth. And it seems like this is a part of a total picture. Now, we're going to take a break here in a few minutes, and so I want to continue this particular line of discussion. But in our next hour, I'd like to get into the art, and I'd like to get into the artists that you use to use as evidence of your philosophy, and then talk a little bit more about the Dead Sea Scrolls, because I think that's very revealing. When there was several of them found, I believe in the 70s, and I know the Catholic Church didn't want everything revealed all at once, from what I'm told. But if you could tell us some of that stuff, and of course we want to know more about your book too. But from what I'm gathering is that you're being very specific about the Seraphims, how the Seraphims who are closest to God also use that God energy while they take human form here on Earth, and it brings up a lot of other issues as far as the status of different people, because we have poor people, we have middle class, we have we have rich people, we have different people that consider themselves better than others, and so it sounds like there are just different levels of consciousness from what you're talking about, and different ways of learning to purify their spirit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sure does. Absolutely.
Okay. Does your book get into that? I mean, from what I was reading, you talk about Enoch, and you talk about the Watchers, and I'm also curious, though, about spirit guides and entities that speak to us as humans. What is your take on that?
You know, I don't really get that much into that. I do a little bit of thinking and research on the area of the twin concept, that that there's just a small part of ourself is actually having this human experience. So we have our perfected light being self already exists and dwells in that perfect realm, whether you call it Sion or the Pure Land or whatever term you choose to use for it. And so that's about the extent of it. Don't do that much with spirit guides and that sort of thing.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, the reason why I say that is because in my line of work, I see spirit all around me. I mean, my wife, she wakes up in the middle of the night, and the dog and I are watching these spirits. And and she goes, "What are you guys doing? What are you doing?" And the dog clearly sees them, and I clearly see it. And she just thinks I'm just really strange. But I do that for a living. I see spirit, and I speak to people who congregate around other people. You know, when a loved one passes away, they go to another dimension. Some people call it heaven, but they certainly stay with us, or they stay around us. And we talk about moving in soul groups, and we talk about how our past lives and how we work on different issues that we may not have completed working on in a previous incarnation, and so it's just a little bit different perspective from what you're coming from, but what you're saying fits. It just it just allows the mind to go into another area. So. Sure. Which is good, and that's what I think that it's all about. Now, before we go to break here, now some people say that ancient aliens are among us right now, like the Palladians and the Greys, and what do you say about these other entities that may be walking the earth or may be around us now? What do you say about those?
Well, you know, I'm not so much a researcher of some of the current affairs in terms of our interaction with extraterrestrials. I kind of keep up with it a little bit when people are talking about interaction with Pleiadians or other beings. So much of what I see in the kind of the disclosure movement, with the disclosure of the extraterrestrial presence, seems to be focused on technology and them giving to humanity free energy technologies, for example, and things such as that. And part of my resistance to really delving into that more deeply is there's just not enough of a spiritual component to it for me. I mean, people think that all aliens just ride around in hardware spaceships, flying Toyotas, basically, and that they're maybe just a couple hundred years in advance of us, evolutionarily and technologically speaking. And from what I've seen, I think when we were talking about with some of the biblical beings, the Seraphim and others, we're talking about way more advanced beings than that offer the promise of a spiritual transformation or underpinning to the experience. And that's what I'm focused on.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to take a break now and ask you to rejoin us here in our next hour. You're listening to EPIC Voyagers Radio here on the Inception Radio Network. I'm your guest host tonight, psychic medium John Cappello, and we're talking to William Henry, who is a mythologist and author and a person of...
You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin. Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ.
Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best.
Hello, IRN listeners. This is MJ saying hello and sharing an awesome secret I discovered. It's called DreamNuage.com. Fresh, raw, organic ingredients are used to create all their products. They are made in very small batches to ensure quality and freshness. Handmade in the USA, each product is created with care and with the finest organic ingredients. There are no preservatives, dyes, or chemicals in any product. Stop by Dream Nuage and relax. That's DreamNuage.com. Simple, raw, organic.
Hello, I'm Pat Usford, inviting you to tune in to EPIC Voyages every Monday evening at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Inception Radio Network. To find out more about EPIC and how you can become a member, visit epicvoyagers.com.
EPIC is Extraordinary Phenomena Investigations Council, the forum for scholars, experts, and those fascinated by and involved in the study of ancient civilizations, conspiracies, cryptozoology, ETs, and UFOs, fringe science, the paranormal, and all manner of extraordinary phenomena. Please join EPIC as we examine the mysteries of the world and beyond on epicvoyagers.com. And for updates on the upcoming interactive video presentations, the latest news and discussion on the EPIC forum, as well as research, investigations, and membership opportunities. EPIC Voyages program schedule is on the Inception Radio Network. Thank you for joining us.
Howdy, this is Joe Mars. I'm inviting you to tune in to EPIC Voyages, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, Monday nights, right here on Inception Radio Network. To find out more about EPIC and how you can become a member, visit epicvoyagers.com. That's EPICVOYAGERS.com.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Hello and welcome back to EPIC Voyagers Radio here on the Inception Radio Network. I'm your guest host this evening, John Cappello, and I'm a psychic medium from the North Texas area. And I have a favor to ask of the audience tonight, if they don't mind. Right now there's a survey going on by the Times Square Press, and they are doing a survey of the top psychics and mediums in the country, in the United States, and actually in the world. And currently I'm ranked 4th, and I'd appreciate it if you might just put in a good word for me. Just go to timesquarepress.com/lightworkers. I'll put it in the chat room for you. And if you could vote for me as a top medium and as a top psychic, you can just send that vote to this email address. And so you might want to write this down. It's called newyorkgate@aol.com. It's newyorkgate@aol.com. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. I'm just expanding my work and expanding the my sphere of influence. So if you could help me in that particular, Carol already has it on there. That's nice. Thank you, Carol, in the chat room. But with that, I want to kind of get back to our topic tonight. Tonight, we're talking to Mr. William Henry of Ancient Aliens, and he is also an author, a radio talk show host, an expert on Seraphim angels, and we've had quite the discussion about seraphims throughout history, about who they are, how we relate to them, what it means to be human, as far as being in this human form, and I'm going to let William tell us a little bit more about that. But William, you were talking about how being a human is, I guess, in a way, you said punishment, or that we're kind of in a purgatory. Would you say that, William? Are you still there?
Yes,
by the way?
Yes. Thank you, John. Yeah, and thank you everybody for coming back after the break. That is the Gnostic perspective, that this is a prison planet, it's a plantation planet, that there are predatory beings out there that feed off human energy. Their primary interest seems to be in feeding off our luminous light body. This is something that we all essentially have as our core when we're born, according to some perspectives. And these predatory beings, call them archons or other terms, seem to feed off the human energy field. And part of what we need to do is to just stay away from, to use a Christian term, sinful behavior, from anger, fear, jealousy, disbelief, all those sorts of things that keep our vibration tuned to those lower frequencies, or those lower domains, and build up our light body as a way of not only assuring our own individual ascension, but also preserving the entire planet, in fact.
Mm-hmm. So do you come from a Gnostic position?
I would have to say I do. I mean, I lean towards that. I'm a bit of a hybrid, and for some people, it gets tough to handle, because I'm not. I'm a believer in Christ. I believe most of the Christian story about Christ, and have spent the past 25 years or so, in fact, researching that story. I'm fixated on the resurrection, the transfiguration and resurrection of Jesus, not as an ideal that one person accomplished, but as one that all people have the capability of fulfilling the transfiguration and resurrection. Mm-hmm. So I'm very very comfortable in talking about those kinds of ideas, which are traditionally considered to be, Christian sacred cows, but they're really not, in my opinion. I mean, we talk in terms of Christ as a being, but we don't often get into the conversation of Christ as a cosmic being, as a star child, as in fact an alien being who came here and followed the story of his emergence into this world, and the preparation that was undergone in preparation for the arrival of that being, and then the ultimate mission, and how the church took it over and pretty much came up with its own version of the story. And what was essentially lost is the religion of Jesus, those first teachings. I mean, you talk about primitive Christianity, and people usually have no idea what you're talking about. They just don't have an understanding of the context out of which Christianity emerged, and how it was formulated and transformed through the centuries.
Mm-hmm. Well, you talk about Gnosticism from another person's perspective. You might say a Christian believes in God, an atheist doesn't believe in God, and the agnostics aren't quite sure.
Well, actually, I would put it this way: you're talking. Most Christians talk theology, mm-hmm. which is God talk. They talk about God a lot. The Gnostics are theurgists, which means mm-hmm. they do God's work. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference between talking about God and doing God's work.
Well, from what I remember, Gnosticism started, I think, in northern Africa, and Augustine was kind of an offshoot of the Gnostics, which were an intellectual group, and a group that had an explanation for a lot of things, and then it kind of morphed into what appeared to be a little more negative later, but to me it did. But
I'd encourage you to go back to Plato as your source.
Mm-hmm. Well, Plato is the idealist. He's the one that brings up the idea of the soul getting reincarnated and being kind of recycled, if you want to call it. Aristotle kind of changed that. He kind of got to the point to where he said, no, the soul doesn't come back. And Christianity adopted the Aristotelian idea after Thomas Aquinas. That's kind of what I tell my listeners, the flipping point of Christianity, because at one time Christianity did believe in the platonic or idealistic philosophy of the recycled soul. So I understand when you talk about Plato, because Plato believed in a priori as opposed to a posteriori. Are you familiar with those terms?
No.
Okay, a priori is the Latin term for believing or knowing that the soul existed prior to you being born, and Aristotle believed a posteriori, where the soul was created at the spark of life, basically. So you are talking about the a priori, or the soul existing for eternity, and it began somewhere. God created the soul, and then it took human form, and then it constantly remembers. It's a process of remembering, and so that's kind of the philosophy that I have kind of worked from and based a lot of my work from as well. So it seems like a lot of the stuff you're saying fits into it. It just comes from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, sure.
But while we're on that, you hear a lot about the Illuminati and how does your work figure in with the Illuminati and that kind of protective idea of Christ and people who are part of that group? What is your take on that?
I was thrown sort of a curveball one day when I went into Webster's dictionary and I looked up the word Illuminati, and the earliest reference to it was that the definition of Illuminati was newly baptized Christian initiate. They called themselves the Illuminati, the illumined ones, and their symbol was a lighted candle, which represented their illumination and the awakening of their higher consciousness. Mm-hmm. So I started down this road and thinking, well, okay, so the first Christians were the first Illuminati. And then, of course, this term, like many of these terms, gets adopted and hijacked by other groups, and pretty soon it's got a very clouded meaning. But that started me down a path. I wrote a book in 2003 called Cloak of the Illuminati that actually dovetails with our conversation about the Watchers, because the Watchers are famous for creating a hybrid race called the Nephilim, who are very often referred to also as the fallen ones. And this word Nephilim is far, far from settled in terms of its definition. I mean, the meaning of Nephilim is completely uncertain. People think it's certain that it means the fallen or the giants or things such as this, but when you actually get into some of the Hebrew and in English lexicons, Brown, Driver, Briggs, and others, you find out that the Nephilim, it refers to angels who ride on clouds. And when I looked at that, I'm realizing that, wait a minute, the cloud is simply a symbol for an elevated consciousness. Christ rides around in a cloud. You wouldn't dare call Christ a fallen being because he rides on a cloud. So there's various levels of these definitions. But the point I was going to make about the Nephilim is that they're often referred to as giants. And you have various researchers out there that say that the giants exist, the Nephilim exist, and they're out all around the world digging up bones. They're looking for 9 and 12-foot skeletons and saying these are the giants, these are the bones of the Nephilim, and that could well be. I don't have any way of absolutely proving that they are or are not, but again, in my research, I was thrown a curveball when I started really looking into the giants and the Nephilim, who are also referred to as the mighty ones. And why were they called the mighty ones? And the answer is because they were called the mighty ones because they possessed a cloak or a garment of light that made them superhuman beings, that made them, in fact, glorious beings. They are also called the men of renown, which means glory. These are glorious beings, and the word glory means literally to glow rays. So what this is saying is that these Nephilim, these offspring of the Watchers and the human females, were beings that glowed rays and possessed this cloak or garment of light that turns out, according to the stories, was transmittable. Adam possessed it. Enoch possessed it. Nimrod possessed it. John the Baptist possessed it. Elijah possessed this. It's passed along through the generations. And what it suggested to me is that this garment of light is more than likely a teaching about how we attain our light body, our glowing body, our resurrection body. And this is why they're called the mighty ones, because it gave them superhuman capabilities. Let me just finish here. What I just wanted to say is that when you're a researcher or a listener to all this, you're always confronted with these crossroads. How are you going to define the word Illuminati? How are you going to define the word Nephilim or giants? If you're looking for 9 and 12-foot skeletons, chances are you're not looking for developing your light body, because you believe that the giants are extraordinarily tall beings, not beings with superhuman spiritual capability or the ability to manifest the glory body, the resurrection body, or the rainbow body of light. And that's what I believe they were capable of doing, and that is the message of the Watchers and the Nephilim.
Well, even in the Old Testament, you heard of people living like 500 years, or also being very, very tall. Very, very tall beings.
Yeah, but John, some of these guys are 92 miles high.
Well, I hadn't heard that before.
Most people haven't. These are obvious exaggerations to say they're giants, because it means they're more than human. They have more than human capabilities. Now I realize there are tall beings that they're digging up around the world, in Peru and in parts of America, even here in the Ohio Valley where I live. They're 5 miles from my house. There's all kinds of legends about giants' graves. So I understand that there's a possibility that those beings exist, but are they the Nephilim? I'm not so sure that they are.
Well, could it be that some of this this could be a little metaphorical, in the sense that giants could be people who possess great intelligence, like an Einstein?
Sure.
So geniuses, people with extraordinary gifts, might be part of that group, even though they don't have the physical characteristic of being 9 foot tall. And once again, we're getting back to that idea of when people ascend. When they were saying they ascend, they were going to be 9 feet or 20 feet tall. Now, I've never heard 92 feet, so that's 92 miles tall. You wouldn't have too many people to interact with, I guess.
There's all kinds of crazy numbers, and this is why they're omitted from most conversations about the giants, because no one would ever believe that beings could be that huge.
Well, I guess, if you look at the Bible, too, if you look at someone like a Goliath, when you look at David versus Goliath, maybe Goliath was part of that Nephilim group. I don't know, because he was considered a giant, and so. But when you said that, and so many things are metaphorical, and that's why I thought that those people that possessed a great intelligence, like a Steve Jobs or even a Leonardo da Vinci or a Michelangelo, those people are certainly giants in their own way. And I guess that brings me to what I wanted to talk to you about, because so much of your work involves researching art and looking at how your work is supported by ancient Christian art, or at least medieval art. Did the great ones like the Raphaels and Michelangelos and Leonardo da Vinci's, did they ever depict some of the Seraphim energy or Seraphim role in humanity that you're talking about?
They did, yeah. The inventor, the person who's credited with the invention of oil painting, who was also a super spy and an alchemist, was named John Van Eyck. And it was he who actually painted the image that I saw in the Philadelphia Museum of St. Francis receiving the stigmata from Christ as a seraph. So that's one good example. And it's kind of started me on this path of really researching sacred art. And I've been kind of running the gamut from everything from a focus on transfiguration art and transfiguration icons. The basic, the common premise or idea that you find in sacred art, mystic art, some of the great Renaissance artists, from Botticelli to Michelangelo to John Van Eyck to you name it, Filippo Lippi. These guys had this belief, going back to the early Christian alchemists too, that their art was capable of transmitting the vibration of divinity. So going back to the early Christian iconographers, they would make an image, an icon of the transfiguration of Jesus when he is taking the disciples up to the top of the mountain, Tabor, and morphs into his light-being form. They believed that those icons of the transfiguration were, in their terminology, sacred portals and sacred mirrors. And they used Gnostic terminology such as the image itself will show you the way and enter through the image. This characterizes their belief that you can enter the divine world through these images, because we are, after all, made in the image of God. And so we are images connecting with the divine realm through images. Now, what happened was, Islam comes along. The Islamic scholars say, hey, y'all are a bunch of idol-worshipping hillbillies. We won't even dream of painting Muhammad's face, let alone portraying Allah. And here you all are standing in front of these panel icons and claiming that you can receive the Christ light through a painting. Are you nuts? And unfortunately, the church fathers in Byzantium, the Orthodox church fathers, agreed with them, and we went through this period where they literally destroyed these icons. And then icon making started to make a comeback in the 13th and 14th century. Then we have the Neoplatonists come along during the Renaissance period, and whole schools are now set up based on the idea that art can transmute or transmit the vibration of divinity. And this is the foundational belief of Botticelli's artwork, of Leonardo, of you name any of the top artists of the Renaissance period. They all believed this because they all came out of the same central school.
Well, they did. A lot of their depictions of the human body were based on the Greeks. I want to get back to this idea of not painting divinity. Now, I know the Muslims do not allow any kind of depiction of the Prophet Muhammad. As a matter of fact, if you do, the depictions I've seen of him is with his back turned, and you just see the head, or or if he's facing you, there's no face.
Exactly.
There. And it's just it's interesting, and but you just have to wonder why, because it seems like it would be a good thing to emulate the deity or the power or that majesty, or be able to assimilate that energy, like you were saying, from some of these other artists. So how does Islam fit into this idea of the seraphims and the idea of the Ascension? Are they just another perspective of a larger concept?
Yeah, well, you have to remember Muhammad himself ascended. He ascended from the very site of Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem. That's why the Dome of the Rock site is sacred to Muslims, because that's where he ascended aboard his magic horse Al-Barak. So there's lots of ascension stories, especially in the mystic branch of Islam, or Sufism as it's also known, where they began to formulate many of these ancient Gnostic ideas into their mystical brand of ascension.
Well, in the Christian tradition, there's only been 3 ascensions: Elijah, Mary, and Christ. And so in the Muslim tradition, Muhammad ascended. Is that right?
That's correct. And, and also in the Christian, Enoch ascended as well. This is why Jesus so often quoted the book of Enoch.
Okay. I have to look at. I didn't know that. So that's. I only knew of the 3, but no, it's fascinating work. But where can people find some of this art on the web? Can you give us a couple of websites that my anxious audience or my group in the chat room can look it up while we're talking? So we'll give them some work to do.
What I would do is I would just Google Transfiguration Christ.
Okay.
All right, and look at some of those images and start to take a look at what you've got going there. You've got Jesus standing on top of a mountain with the disciples in fear. His message is, rise and do not be afraid. Jesus is standing in what is described as a cloud. But to many people's eyes, modern eyes, when you see Jesus standing in front of a circle or a gateway that's filled with stars, today we think in terms of words like Stargate or portal. He's clearly standing in front of a gateway into another realm, and he's wearing a bright white garment that is symbolic of the purified light body. So I would encourage just to kind of start focusing on some of the transfiguration icons and see if they can connect with those, because those are extremely powerful images energetically, and it's also a call to our own awakening, because the idea is that we all have this light body within us. We wear it on the inside. The angels, the avatars, the divine beings, they wear it on the outside. And the transfiguration or metamorphosis of Jesus is a very powerful story that talks about our ability to wear our light body garment, and also gives us a mirror, a portal that we can enter into and begin this process if that's our path or our calling.
Well, when you talk about, a matter of fact, I have pulled up on the computer right now a depiction of Christ, the Transfiguration, just as you said, with Christ in white robes and it appearing to be a portal. But if it also depicts some other things in there, which I want to get your comments about. It depicts him kind of as separating the good people from the evil people. And if you've ever been to the Sistine Chapel, have you ever been there?
Yes.
Okay. On the back wall, you have the Judgment Day, and you have Christ there ascending, and you see those that are rising with him, and then you see those that are fallen. Yeah. How does that fit into? Is there a hell, or is there?
I love those Judgment Day depictions, because at that time the choice was so stark. It was like there's 2 paths, but ultimately only one choice that you can make. And the images that I particularly like are the Last Judgment images, where they show the righteous ones, the elect who are ascending towards Christ, and they're often portrayed as levitating. And the reason is because they've elevated their consciousness. They've raised their vibration. They've begun the process of metamorphosis. They've had the change of heart. They've locked their heart more focused on love than fear. And as a consequence, the path is opening before them. And this stark contrast, of course, is that if we live our lives in fear and anger and jealousy and hatred, then we are going to make this a living hell for ourselves. But ultimately, redemption is a possibility for everyone. But in my opinion, you kind of have to meet Christ halfway, and that's the part of the message that I see so often in the Last Judgment images, is that these are the ones that have decided to walk the path of righteousness, which is a word we don't like to use these days. It just simply means to live in a good and godly way, which means you're gonna follow the commandments, love your neighbor as yourself, and love with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul. That's the key to the secret of eternal life. That's also the secret of ancient alien Stargate metaphysics. That's the universal law of one.
So it sounds like you said, that there is a spiritual or even a religious basis to your work. Is there a particular type of group, or besides the Gnostics, or is this simply a Gnostic perspective of reality or of spirituality?
Most of what I talk about in interviews is not coming from a church. This is what I have gleaned from my research in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nag Hammadi library, which are Gnostic texts. And this is the actual beliefs. I mean, it's shocking to people who have never actually read the Dead Sea Scrolls, especially Christians who have never read the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're missing out on an enormous amount of insight into how Christianity emerged. And so I read the Dead Sea Scrolls. I also I spend a lot of my time chasing around the folks that write from the ivory towers, your PhDs, your academics, because a lot of this material about from the Dead Sea Scrolls has yet to make it into the popular or alternative presses. And so when you get into some of this PhD material, it's absolutely astonishing at how explicit the Dead Sea Scrolls were about our inherent divine nature, that we are all, as humans, in effect, angels already, and two, that angels come and go from this planet routinely, and that, in fact, the Essene community at Qumran, when they were writing the Dead Sea Scroll stories, believed their community to be they believed they were cohabiting with angels, which means that angels were on Earth. And so some people don't like to use the word angel. They prefer to use the word alien or extraterrestrial. And if you feel more comfortable with those words, then that's exactly what the Essenes were describing happening in their community.
That's very interesting. One of the things that I was also looking at while you were talking was that the role of the archangels, and I kind of want to bring things back a little bit to the Seraphims, because I know that's a big area that you discuss in your books as the Watcher. We associate different personalities with the archangels. Are there specific Seraphims that have names or certain personalities, or do they highlight certain energies? For instance, we see the Archangel Michael as being the protector. We see Raphael as kind of being the doctor. We see some of the other archangels like Metatron being a protector of children. It seems that some people talk about the archangels as being leaders for the Seraphims. What is your take on that?
Well, you mentioned Metatron. He's considered to be the leader of the Seraphim. And I'm sure you're aware that Metatron was once a human. His name was Enoch.
Oh, so he's Enoch.
He's Enoch. Yeah, he was taken to heaven by the archangel Michael, who is also a seraph and a watcher. And en route, Michael takes him through several halls or holes in space until he ultimately gets into, it's either, I can't remember, it's the third or the seventh heaven, where he anoints Enoch with the chrism oil, the holy anointing oil. And it dissolves Enoch's body into glorious rainbow-colored light. So he now matches the angels. He matches the seraphim, which suggests to me that the seraphim have rainbow bodies. And then Enoch is taken to the throne of God, and he's given a job. He becomes a janitor. He sweeps up around the throne of God. He's given instruction. Then he's returned to earth and given a period of time, 30 days, is usually the number that's mentioned, to share this heavenly knowledge with his friends and family. Then Enoch is taken back up into heaven and given a new job and a new name. His new name is Metatron, and his job, his role, is he is the guide, and he's now seeking humans who are like Enoch, who are on the path, who are ready to take the next step in their ascension, and he's now ready to assist us in our transformation.
So Metatron is a pretty powerful angel. Now, he's not the head of the archangels. That's Raguel.
He's the head of the seraphim.
He's the head of the seraphim. Okay, yeah. But he's also an archangel.
Yes, and this is where people can you can really kind of start to split hairs here, because the same angels that are referred to as archangels are also referred to as watchers.
Okay, because I guess I don't want to press the issue about the hierarchy of angels, but in the hierarchy of angels, the archangels are really pretty low. They are the upper realm of they are the upper part of the lower realm.
Yeah, and that's kind of funny too when you talk about Enoch, becoming going up to the throne of God and becoming a janitor. Well, that doesn't sound like too much fun, but hello, he's at the throne of God. I mean, come on. And then he's no longer a janitor after he becomes Metatron. Now he's a guide, or it's like when you're talking at that level, you're still talking about a glorious being.
Well, the thing is that we're talking about seraphims, and now we're kind of branching off to some archangels, but there are other angels that we haven't talked about, and some of those are the principalities, the virtues, and the dominions. Do you ever what is their role, or do they take also form as seraphims?
I haven't spent much time researching the principalities, the powers, other than recognizing that they're there. That's basically it. I've just been kind of fixated on the seraphim.
On the seraphim, okay. Because the principalities, they say that every country has its own angel, and then the powers are the angels that basically take care of the wind and the weather and change of seasons and things like that, and then the virtues, the powers, I guess, are also the dominions. I got to get my angels straight, and then you have the virtues, the virtue angels, which I find very fascinating, because I think that they help people with guidance on how to live a virtuous life. So these are they're from my perspective, they are used as guides or tools to help us become better individuals. So to get to that higher realm where the seraphim are, you have to kind of get through those other angels, or you got to at least acknowledge them. So that's just a fascinating thing that I found from my meditations and from the work I do. Because it's like I say, when you're a medium, you encounter all kinds of entities and beings, and you have to kind of understand their frequencies and things like that. At least that's my experience. So in your book, The Watchers, you take it another level from where from your other books?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the subtitle of the book is Ascension, Resurrection, and Perfection, Lost Secrets of the Watchers, Ascension, Resurrection, and Perfection. And I'm just simply kind of starting off from the point that we know that when the Watchers came here, they brought the secrets of heaven with them. Mm-hmm. What are the secrets of heaven? Well, to me, they're the lost secrets of ascension, resurrection, and perfection. This is the reason the Watchers came here. Their mission is to help us to break through the boundary that separates the human and divine realms, and to assist us in transforming the planet. I mean, that could be an oversimplified way of looking at it, but that's where I started with it. And then especially my focus is on asking the question: is it possible that when the Watchers are portrayed as these beings, and when you read the descriptions of the eyewitness accounts of beings, of individuals like Isaiah, who actually saw one of the Watcher angels, as the Seraphim, he describes them as lightning-like, rainbow-like. Mm-hmm. And I put all these descriptions together and I match them up with the Tibetan rainbow body of light, and the correspondence is really pretty striking, and no one's ever made this before. And so it's new territory for researchers to follow this path that I've opened up in the Watchers. And so that's where I'm coming from. Is it possible that the Watchers, as these beings of light, are what we think of as having the rainbow body of light? And is this the essential teaching that they brought to Earth? And when Enoch becomes the hero of the Essenes, and he is the man who's translated from a human into a Watcher angel who has a glowing rainbow-like body. Is this in fact describing Enoch's transformation into the rainbow body of light? And then how influential ultimately was that on the Christian story of Jesus' resurrection, where he too also manifests the glory body or the rainbow body? Mm-hmm.
Well, the rainbow body. Now, so as a person, we all have a rainbow body. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And now another thing that is a correlation to my work that I feel like I need to bring up is the human aura, because the human aura is made up of different colors. Mm-hmm. And the chakras are made up of different colors. Does that relate to what you're talking about?
It does in a way. By analogy, our body is the cocoon and the rainbow body is the butterfly. So the aura is part of the body, but it is not the same as the rainbow body of light.
Oh, it's not. Okay. Yeah. Okay, because I was just curious about that. Now, we only have a few minutes left in our program, and so I want to kind of have you tell all of our audience about where, your travels and some of the other things that you do. Do you mind doing that?
No, it'd be my pleasure. Thank you. I've actually just returned from 47 days on the road. My wife Claire and I were in France. We lead tours of sacred southern France following the Cathar Trail. And we came home back to London. My wife's British, so we have family in London, so we frequently stay in London, sort of a second home. We, after being in London, we went to Egypt for 2 weeks and led one of our legendary Stargate Egypt tours, which was absolutely phenomenal. In fact, we're repeating the Egypt tour in March of 2015 and the France tour in June of 2015. So we're very excited about that and really happy that things are back to normal in Egypt. All is well. And in fact, now's the time to be there because the tourists are just now starting to come back.
Oh, that's good news, because it was such a shame that so many things were just drawn to a complete halt in Egypt. Their main focus of their economy is tourism, isn't it?
Well, no, it's a small percentage of their economy actually, but it has a dramatic effect when it dries up because they need dollars for trade, and it's really it was just awful what happened in Egypt. It was an economic hit job. I mean, they just really devastated their economy and the people. But now the word's out that everything's fine, and so fortunately, people are starting to come back.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. So you're going to be going to? Are you? Did you say you're going to Egypt? When are you going to Egypt? Did you say?
March of 2015.
March. So that's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I can't wait.
So how do people sign up for that?
They can go to my website, williamhenry.net. We'll have all the tour information up here in the next week or so, but they can drop me an email through my contact page if they're interested in getting advance or early bird notice about the tour.
Okay, that's great. And the same is true for France.
Same is true for France as well. And we're also we're going to do something really special. The Shroud of Turin is going on display for 67 days from April until August of 2015. So we're organizing a special tour to go see the Shroud.
Oh wow! I've seen it. So that's
me too.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it's great. It's a great thing. I lived in Europe for a little while, so when I was a kid or when I was in college, and I did a lot of. I was able to go do a lot of wonderful things that I can't do now.
Awesome, John. That's so cool.
But no, you do a lot of traveling around the United States as well, and
I do.
So
I'll be in Reading, Pennsylvania, November 16th, and on November 21st, I'm in Dallas, Louisville, Texas, at Miracles of Joy, and I've got details on my website about both of those events. Oh, great. Well, I hope to come to some of your events when you're down here in my area. But you reside in Tennessee, and is there a particular place that you work out of in Tennessee? What part of Tennessee? Nashville? I live in Nashville, and actually I give tours of Nashville. We've got replicas of 2 healing temples from the ancient world. We have a scale replica of the Parthenon from ancient Athens. Yes. Complete with the tallest indoor statue in the Western world, a 42-foot tall statue of the goddess Athena, completely covered in gold. Then we have a 2,200-foot-long magician's rod that is laid out in growing at the base of our state capitol. That's a absolutely just extraordinary living temple. Well, do you live in Nashville because you had your roots in music? Yeah, I had come down here to go to college. I was born and raised in Detroit, and ended up staying here in Nashville. I just really like it. It's a beautiful place. It's really grounded, and I've got the Vanderbilt University Divinity Library 5 minutes from my house. Oh, so you have access to research. Exactly. Oh, well, that's great. That's great. Well, where can people find your book? They can get my books from, I've got The Secret of Sion at Amazon.com, and my other books are available from my website, williamhenry.net. Okay, well, that's good. And then, of course, you'll be bringing some books with you when you come to Texas. Is that right? Absolutely, yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good. Well, what are some of your final thoughts? When are you going to be back on Ancient Aliens so we can kind of mark that on our calendar? Well, we're in season 7 right now. The first 2 episodes, maybe 3 episodes of the season have already aired, and we'll have 16 episodes in total. So you can watch out for those. I think they're going to run them all continuously now until the first of the year, which will be nice. They've in the years past they split the season a little bit, but this year they're running them continuously on H2. There's always Ancient Aliens marathons too. I mean, it's amazing how much the show, how much airtime it gets, and how well people respond to it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Well, when I was telling people I was going to be doing this program, people were asking about the gentleman with the wild hair. Do you know him? Or I've met Giorgio. Yeah, I mean, isn't that something? You know, it's like if you want to get your message across, you got to go Duck Dynasty or have crazy hair or something. People just respond to it. It's kind of funny. Be a little eccentric. If I had enough hair, I guess I could try that, but I don't. Well, I mean, TV likes characters, right? And I'm Giorgio's character.
Yeah,
and
he is.
so that's cool. More power to him. He's really taken it, and I mean, good, bad, or indifferent. You can agree and disagree with him on things, and many people do. He's still done a good job of doing what he does.
He's great. He really is. He does a fabulous job. I was just telling you that when people think of ancient aliens, he's one of the first people that comes to mind because
it's hilarious.
So unique. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and just as the years progressed, as the show grew in its popularity, his skin got oranger and his hair got higher. So it just it worked for him.
It worked. It sure did. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being part of our program. We truly appreciate having you. You're one of our more famous guests that we've had on the program, and we are just delighted. Now they put on the chat a picture of Giorgio, so that's a good thing. So we have a few minutes left, and so let's just do kind of a recap of our talk tonight. Your new book called The Lost Legends of the Watchers, is that right?
Lost Secrets of the Watchers, that's right.
Lost Secrets of the Watchers, and it mainly concentrates on the role of the Seraphims with humanity. Would that kind of be part of it in a nutshell, or?
Yes. So the Watchers, I'm equating with the Seraphim. They brought the secrets of heaven to earth with them, and I believe that those secrets are about human transformation into angels, what we refer to as ascension, resurrection, and perfection.
Mm-hmm. Now, on your website, you have a brief summary of each of the chapters of your new book, and it's kind of, I guess, as a teaser, but it seems to be very, very interesting. And also, before we leave, I want to ask you about Arcanum. What is Arcanum? What is that?
That is a show my wife Claire and I did on Gaiam TV, where we explored the esoteric secrets that are encoded or embedded in sacred art. We did 12 episodes, and we're due to do another second season of Arcanum in the early part of 2015.
Oh, okay. So we can get that on Gaiam TV. That's not available at all places. Is it, or is it?
It's internet, so anybody around the world can log on. You can watch all 12 episodes for free. You get 10 days free when you sign up. It's $9.98 a month after that, and Gaiam's got just a wonderful offering of video presentations and other shows that are available that are awesome.
Mm-hmm. Now you also have your own YouTube channel. Is that right?
I haven't done enough with the YouTube channel. I'm intending to do more in 2015, but right now there's just a few things up there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, but you're getting your message out there, so that's a good thing. So you already have a lot planned for 2015, I'm sure. So are you going to be going to other areas around the country besides Pennsylvania and Texas?
I hope so. I know I'll be out in Los Angeles, and I've had invitations for Northern California. But our tour schedule is such that we're spending a lot of time in Egypt, France, and Italy this year, as well as England.
Oh, wow. Well, where do you go in England? Do you do a lot with Stonehenge and?
We're in the Wiltshire area. Yeah,
in the Wiltshire area.
London and Wiltshire, yeah.
And because there's just so much that goes on. Of course, Great Britain is a wonderful place for metaphysics, psychics, astrologers, and they are just very open-minded to this type of spirituality. And we learned so much about ancient cultures and the Druids and people like that, all the insight that they had to the extraterrestrials, because with Stonehenge being, I guess, set up for the sun to just strike it in specific ways. Does any of your work have to do with ancient structures and how they may communicate with the star people?
To some extent, yeah. Of course, the Egyptian temples and that's something I'm getting more and more into. I consider that more the hardware, whereas I'm dealing more with the software.
Oh, okay. That's the hardware, and you're dealing with the software. That's a good way to put it.
But they of course work together. You can't have one without the other. So.
Well, that's right. That's right. Well, we're learning how sophisticated all of that is.
For sure.
And to see all the different things that they did, and even movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark, they would show how the certain ways the sun would hit certain things, and it would point to where things were buried and so on and so forth. So there's always been that connection with the celestial and with the sun especially. So it's fascinating. So once again, I want to thank you for being a part of our program. This is EPIC Voyagers Radio here on the Inception Radio Network, and I just want to let the audience know that we have the show will be available for downloading in a couple of hours, and you can also hear it again on Dark Matters Radio. I believe tomorrow night. I believe it'll be available then. So we want to thank you. It's on Friday nights, our engineer says. So we hope that you'll tune in again and listen to our interview with Mr. William Henry. Thanks again for joining us this evening. I hope to be with you. I hope to be with you when you come to Texas, and hope to be with the audience again sometime soon. So take care, and that'll...
Thank you for being with us tonight. Please join us again next Monday evening for Extraordinary Phenomena Investigations Council's EPIC Voyages. I'm Roger Peacock for EPIC. Until next time.